everyone. My name is Roye Okupe. I am CEO and co-founder of YouNeek Studios. I'm also a writer, and I so far have 4 graphic novels out. I write, I produce, I direct. I feel like this is, outside of San Diego, this is probably the biggest con. And I've pushed back coming to New York Comic Con for 2 years now. I don't know. It's kind of overwhelming, as you can see in the background. But I couldn't avoid it because a lot of people have been asking, "When are you going to be at New York Comic Con? When are you going to be at New York Comic Con? We want to see you at New York Comic Con." So this year I decided to take the leap, and this is the first day, and so far so good actually. I mean, today is the first day, so there's 3 more days to go. So I can't really say whether it's more successful than what I've done before until Sunday. But for now, I would say it's a good start. We'll see by Sunday. Let's see. So let me take it back a little bit. I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. And growing up, like most, not if everyone here, I was fascinated by superheroes. I loved Batman, Superman, Iron Man. But I always thought it would be cool to see a superhero character that kind of like embraced my culture, grew up where I was in Lagos, Nigeria. And it just really never happened. And when I came to the US, when I moved to the US in 2002, that was when the superhero movie genre kind of like started exploding. Of course, before that, in the 90s, you had Blade, but Spider-Man, the Batman movies, these were things that kind of like just took things to the next level. It wasn't until then I decided that, look, it would actually be cool if someone actually started doing more superheroes that were based on African characters or African culture. So in 2012, I decided I was going to take a chance. So I actually got into the comic book industry through animation. I wanted to do an animated movie first. That didn't work out, so I decided to scale back. I actually have a background in computer science, but I don't have a background in writing, animation. That's not something that I studied anywhere. Self-taught in everything. Basically, just reading books, and I don't actually draw. I work with artists, but I write. I actually do animation. That I do. But yeah, I spend most of my time trying to create these characters that are inspired by African history and African mythology, and also bring something new, different, and fresh to the comic book industry. I mean, when the only side of Africa is either poverty or it's something in the jungle about animals, or the safari. When you don't go beyond that, that kind of like irks me. But then again, I feel like it's up to us as, people who are born and raised in Africa or have African descent, or who have actually spent time in Africa, to create these stories to show a different side of Africa, because it's up to us to change the narrative through, comic books, animated shows, movies, whatever the case may be, or, even just, writing a novel or whatever the case may be. Just because my first exposure to American culture was actually through like the superhero cartoons. Uh,
What did you used to watch?
I grew up on Ninja Turtles, actually. Ninja Turtles, Transformers, and the X-Men animated series. Those were things I was glued to the TV every morning. Like my mother literally had to drag me away so that I could get to school. So that for me, that was my first exposure into American culture. And I'm trying to do the same thing with my books, where this is a side of Africa you don't get to see. A side of, specifically, like for my first book, EXO, it's a superhero story about redemption that takes place in 2025 Lagos, Nigeria. That's where I was born and raised. I want to show a side of Lagos that you don't get to see in mainstream media, and just in general, a side of Africa that you don't get to see in mainstream, whether that's comics, animation, TV, whatever the case may be. I would say one thing that I always say is that we live in a time, in a day and age of the internet. So you can write a book today and someone in China can read it the next morning, on Facebook or via web comic. what I would say is that just go out there and put your stuff out there, put your best work out there, and just read books about marketing and promotion, how you can use social media as a tool to spread your work. Because I feel like as hard as it is right now to get your work out there, it's not as hard as it was 10 years ago, because now we have social media, and part of what I do is um, for the four graphic novels I have out currently. Um, 95% of the people that work on the artists that work on the book are all from Lagos, Nigeria. So
is that something that you wanted to do?
yes, that's very intentional. I'm based here in the US, so it would actually be easier if I worked with an artist here, because I could, do a one-on-one, or, it's easier, if you're working with someone that you can actually see, and get feedback on immediately. But yeah, all the people that I work with, like I said, 95% of the artists that I work with, they're actually locally based in Nigeria, and that's intentional because I want to be able to promote African art, to a mainstream audience. Because, like you said, these are people that don't usually get to see their work outside of whatever it is confines they are in back home. But so far so good. Being able to successfully, sell these books to different people from different backgrounds all over the world, and the art is actually fantastic. And when you open my books and when you read my books, you can definitely attest to the talent that is coming out of Africa now. Yeah, so it's actually it's a blasé story, because I was sitting down, and I think I was trying to see, okay, what's a unique name that I can come up with for a company? And I said, what's unique? I'm looking for something unique. I was just like, well, I'll just name it YouNeek Studios. I'll just spell it differently. So it's not it's not an engaging story, but it's really just simple. I wanted something unique, and I just went with the word unique. Although I spelled it differently, YOUNEEK. But that's really the impetus behind that. I mean, I've had a lot of that, not just here, but several cons that I've gone to recently. A lot of people come up to the table and it's like, "Oh, I saw your work on Facebook, or I backed your Kickstarter. I backed all your Kickstarters." And to me, that's the most rewarding thing, is that as a writer or someone who creates, you want your work to be appreciated, and you want people to actually understand what it is that the message you're trying to send. And every time somebody comes to me and says, "Oh wow, I got this that you said in your book," or "Oh, the main character did this and I actually understood why you wrote it that way," or just saying that, "Oh, I loved your book," to me, it's the most rewarding thing ever. And that's one of the main reasons why I do it, is because I want to share these stories with people, and I want them to be able to just get a different perspective of Africa, get a different perspective of the place I grew up and my culture, but in a way that it's entertaining as well. Yeah, so my first book was actually EXO, The Legend of Wally Williams, and this is a superhero sci-fi story that takes place in a futuristic Lagos, Nigeria. Like I said, I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and this book actually has a lot of things that I noticed growing up, and I inserted a lot of things that happened to me as a child, or as a young adult and a teenager in Lagos, into this book as well. Just wrapped it around a superhero context. The story actually follows Wally Williams, who's the main character, and he gets home and he finds the super suit that his father left behind. But the twist is that he actually hates his father. So he doesn't want anything to do with the suit until there's an attack in the city that actually forces him to become the hero he was always meant to be. And for me, one thing I was trying to do with this book, as much as it has a lot of action, it has everything that you would want to see in a superhero title. I also try to ground it in a lot of family dynamics, because I feel like that's the one thing that everyone can relate to, is family. Having problems in your family and having to juggle that as well too. But for me, one thing I find I feel like is interesting about this book is how the main character balances the issues he has within his family, and also simultaneously tries to save a city at the same time. I feel like it came around being a very compelling story. My other series, my latest one, is Malaika Warrior Queen, and it's a historical fantasy that actually takes place in a 15th century West Africa. Now, that's something that you don't get to see. A lot of people don't know that.
15th century?
15th century,
Why
1 5.
15? Why 15?
because it's actually inspired by a real African queen that existed in that time. She's called Queen Amina of Zazzau. I took a lot of inspiration from the story because a lot of people don't realize that Africa is actually very rich in history and mythology. We know about Thor, we know about Zeus, and we get to see all these stories over and over again. I'm trying to see how I can insert African culture and African mythology into the comic book and animation genre as well, because again, it's like I said, it brings in a different type of cultural background and it opens the door to a whole lot of possibilities and stories that a lot of people are not aware of as well. So this has a lot of inspiration from from real African history, but the story follows Malaika warrior queen who actually tries to defend her empire from threats, not just on the outside but on the inside as well. I also have the Windmaker, which is my third series, and this is a one-part art book, one-part storybook that actually is inspired a lot by West African mythology. And the story actually follows a royal family who inherits the powers to actually fly these very magical dragons. And that power actually causes a civil war within the family. So the book actually goes through the entire period between before they had the dragons and after they had the dragons and what caused the civil war between the family. And all these characters actually are within the same universe of heroes. So there's a lot of crossover possibilities in the future. But for now, each character has their own ongoing series and story. Actually, I haven't done it any other way. That was my intention from the beginning, but I would say it's actually more difficult because when you write one book, you have to be thinking about 10 other characters in your mind and in as well too, because there's a lot of repercussions that go on if one character does one thing the other way. And one thing that I forgot to mention actually is that all my books are actually graphic novels, so I don't do floppy comics. So I go directly to a minimum of 130-page graphic novels because I feel like that's the easiest way for the consumer to actually enjoy the stories. Like you get a beginning, a middle, and an end all in one book, and you don't have to wait for ongoing issues. So it actually makes it more difficult to write because when I'm writing Malaika, I actually have to think about what's happening in EXO in the future as well. So Malaika actually means queen in Arabic, but the funny story about this is because if you read this the way it is, it's pronounced Malika. It's actually pronounced Malaika. And the reason why that happens is because when I was creating this logo, I don't know what I was half asleep. I actually forgot to add an A to it, and then I'd already sent out my documents to my lawyer to copyright the name. So that sorry, to trademark the name. So once the trademark was ongoing, I couldn't change it, so I just had to leave it the way. But Malaika actually means queen in Arabic. But the name that I was going for, which is Maliaka, which is Malaika, actually means angel. Yeah. So a mistake. Kind of worked out. That's so cool. Yes. I felt like for me, I had to be business savvy before I decided to go into this because I actually quit my full-time job 2 years ago. This is what this is what I do full time. So for me, it was about trying to set up a company in a way a company that was set up for success. And a lot of that had to do with educating myself about actually running a business and not only creating awesome stories and awesome characters. And I think a lot of times um, we creative people, we forget that there's another aspect of business that we actually have to be great at to be able to have success. And for me, it's I early on I decided that I really had to make sure I balance the creative and the business side of things in a way that they can actually be in harmony with each other. So I did a lot of training. I took a lot of different classes online, bought a lot of books, and just educated myself about marketing, PR, finances, accounting, just things that, just rudimentary things that are not fun per se, but are necessary if you want to run a successful business. And so far, so good. Yes, I was. It was scary because I had a great job. I was a web developer and I was doing government contracting for different organizations. So I was making decent money. But this has always been my passion, and I really wanted to just take a chance on myself. And I always tell people that part of the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to also inspire people to chase their dreams while I'm living mine. And I feel like the best example is to be able to continue to do this successfully, share my story in a way that can inspire people and, let them learn things from the way I've done things, both my mistakes and my successes as well. I have a blog that actually I chronicle everything that I do, the way I do it, and how people can also follow in the same footsteps as well. It's youneekstudios.com/blog, because I feel like one thing that I'm very passionate about is also educating people about how things can work as a creative, and you don't have to be a starving artist or someone who feels like you can't do this in a way that you can get money back from it. So like I said, so far so good, and hopefully the next 10 years are going to be great.
Are you happier now?
Yes, much happier. I mean, like I said, this is what I've always wanted to do. As a kid, I just didn't think it was possible until I took a chance on myself. So, Black Panther, obviously, he's a character that's one of the very few mainstream African superheroes. And when I say African, I mean that actually, are in Africa. Again, you're putting me on the spot. I would say, I mean, I've seen a few things here and there, but it's not crazy enough where I'm like, oh wow, this is totally ridiculous. If it was anything, it would just be me nitpicking, and I don't like to be that kind of person. So, in general, I think they've done a good job. I like certain aspects of the most recent one by Ta-Nehisi Coates as well too. I would say in general, yes, it's been a great character. Like I said, one of my favorites. I also like Storm as well too. Um, Luke Cage. I like the Netflix series as well too. So yeah, those are the ones that
What about Static?
Oh yes, Static. Static is actually one of my favorites, and I was so upset when the animated series was canceled because I mean I just thought it was a great show, and it was one of the few superhero characters on TV that were black. And when it went off the air, I was pretty much disappointed. But yeah, all the characters from Milestone, like Icon, Hardwire, these are all characters that they were great characters, great stories. So some of my favorites as well too. Right now, there's a lot of independent people that are doing great.
What's some independence you like?
Right now, I'm drawing blanks. I can't. I mean, I'll talk about books in general. I like Bounce by Chuck Collins, The Legend of Matamaji by Eric Dean Seaton. That's another great series. The Pack by Paul Louis Julie. He's a close friend of mine. He does fantastic work. That's another great one as well too. Trying to think. There's one right now that's on the Kickstarter. It's Nana the Were Spider. That's by a close friend of mine as well too.
Laughing because like we know all these people.
Oh, you got.
So that's how we're laughing. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Greg. It's Nana by Greg. He's a great friend, great writer as well too. So that's one of my favorite ones as well too. Again, there's a ton of. I'm gonna get in trouble if they. Some of my friends, see this, and I didn't mention the names, but
You said your superheroes are black. So
yeah, exactly. But those are the ones off the top of my head that are really fantastic, and I recommend to anyone. I don't necessarily do anything like an open submission or anything like that because I'm very specific when like if I have a certain book that let's say I'm working on a Malika book or an EXO book or a Windmaker book. There's certain specific things that I'm looking for in an artist that I want to be able to integrate to that story. And most of the time, I usually just go on Facebook and I look at people's portfolios, and I'm like, okay, this person will make a great fit for this story that I'm doing at this point in time. So for me, it's just about doing my own research, seeing what people have done in the past, excuse me. But like I said, for me, it's a little different because I always try to use people from Lagos, Nigeria, or other artists that are based in other countries in Africa, because it's a huge priority for me to be able to showcase their talents, not just here in the US, which is where I'm based, but globally as well too. So I go specifically directly um, looking for artists, based back home, because I do want to support them, not only because they're based home, but because they are very talented, and I feel like they deserve more exposure. And these characters, they have their stories based in Africa, so I also want people that are actually living there to be able to draw these characters, because I feel like it brings a different level of authenticity to these characters as well too. It's simple. You can contact me on Facebook. I'm very good at responding. I try to respond to actually everything. Um,
Your Facebook fan page
no,
or
my personal Facebook page. Just search for Roye Okupe, Roye, and the
okay,
last name Okupe.
okay.
Or you can just go on my website and contact me via my website as well. Like I said, I'm very good in trying to respond to every kind of contact that I get, because like I said, I try as much as possible to interact with people, because part of the reasons I do what I do is to be able to inspire people as well, and also try to help people achieve their goals as well. So if there's anything that I can do to help, I don't always get it right, but I always try to, and because that's very important to me, because I feel like that's the only way we can have a better world. It's like when everyone's chasing their dreams, everyone's going to be too distracted to be bickering about the 1,000 things that we bicker about all the time. So I try to do my part just to help people. Yeah, I'm always open to any kind of collaborations that help move the industry back home forward. What I would say is that obviously it depends on what the motivations are, because I feel like that's important as well. I'm always open to any kind of dialogue that can move the industry forward and create an avenue for people in Africa who draw, write, animate, create video games, produce movies, whatever the case may be, to be able to have more exposure globally. Because, like I said, I do feel like Africa has a lot of great stories to tell, and it's about time that we started telling it not just on the continent, but to a global audience as well too. Oh, that's a good question. I think the Joker is number one. The Joker is, for me, just such a psychological mess that, I mean, he's just, and half of the time I think, I personally really feel like the Joker is a normal person that is so smart that everything he does is a facade. Like he just does it because it just drives Batman nuts. That's just my opinion. I'm sure I'm wrong, but he's my favorite villain. Black villain, the Black Manta, from Aquaman. Yes, because to me, like, I feel like the best kind of villains are the ones where you can almost see why they're doing what they're doing, but by the time you get into the crux of it, you're like, okay, I can't root for this guy. But Black Manta is one of the characters that especially in the stories that I've seen, that he has just such a complex background, and his motivations to why he does what he does are actually pretty cool. First of all, a lot of times when people talk about diversity, they restrict it towards race. A lot of people don't know that when we say we need more diversity, we also need more female superhero characters, just female, action leads in general. Before Wonder Woman, I don't, I can't remember the last time we had a female superhero movie that was in cinema. I'm trying to think now, and I mean, it just, and to me, that's just, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But I mean, things are moving forward now, so we're getting to where we need to be. But my motivations are creating a character that you know is, because I grew up, I had two older sisters and I had my mom, And when I moved to the United States, I stayed with my sister. She practically raised me for the second half of my life because I moved to the U.S. when I was 16. So in my late teens, she was the one that taught me how to be a man. Taught me the values and just different things. So I've been around a lot of strong female role models, and those people in my life are actually the where I grabbed the inspiration for these characters as well too, because I try to create strong female characters that can stand on their own, but are also, proud about who they are, how what being a strong female character stands for as well too. And I think Malika Warrior Queen actually embodies a lot of the things that I was taught about, what a strong female should look like and how she carries herself and how she protects the people that she loves and how she's not afraid to be who she is and feel things, but at the same time strong enough where she can be independent and also take charge when she needs to be. And for me, that's what I grew up around, and that's what I've tried to put in my stories and in my characters as well too. And you see that in Malika and also Fury, who's the female superhero in my first book, EXO. I would say YouNeek Studios, which is my company, we just focus on creating stories that are inspired by cultures that you don't get to see, every day. And I think it's about time we started seeing more of these characters that are from different and diverse backgrounds as well, and not just Africa as well. There's the world is a big place, and one thing that we, like I said, we pride ourselves on is creating fantasy heroes, superheroes that come from parts of the world that you don't get to see every day. And Africa is just a place that we started, obviously because I grew up there, so it's my go-to to start this company. But in the future, I do want to work with different writers and different artists from different parts of the world to create different fantasy stories and superhero stories from all parts of the world, because I feel like the world is becoming so interconnected, and we can't just focus on one type of hero or one type of place to be able to tell these great stories. So we're a company that focuses on just trying to create a diverse library of eclectic characters that just have great stories that anyone, not just superhero fans, not just comic book fans, anybody that enjoys a great story can enjoy our content. Wow. Come on, man. 3 words.
3 words.
Uh, never seen before. That's 3 words, right? Yeah, that's
Never
it.
seen before. That's good. Never seen.
Right.